Teen killed mom and 2 siblings, also plans school shooting.
Human remains found in search for woman murdered 12 years ago by husband.
Boyfriend arrested for killing girlfriend savagely.
Man, 35, charged with the murder of a university lecturer.
Welcome to Killer Instinct, where we're discussing what is it with the fascination with true crime, specifically murder.
Hi, I'm Gladys.
I'm Tara.
I'm Malak.
And I am Alice.
For a minute, let's go back a bit and talk about when we were younger and how we were obsessed with stories. Right, I don't know about you, but I loved hearing about heroes, villains, actions and events.
Yeah, as humans, I feel like we're obsessed with stories, fiction or not. Now, when it comes to true crime, they're real and they can happen to anyone. And I think that's what makes it so interesting to people, because we want to know how, why, where, and when these insane things happen, as they could happen to any one of us.
I saw the criminologist David Wilson on this morning show talking about this, and he mentioned how it can also be seen as a puzzle for some, and trying to figure out why and who the person did what they did. For example, the Menendez brothers were a very popular case. They murdered their parents in 1989 and were found guilty of murder in the first degree. They were charged with life in prison without the possibility of parole. This case is interesting because even though it took place 36 years ago, it resurfaced when a popular hit show on Netflix was made to share their story.
And the main question on everyone's mind was, why did they do it? The main motive behind the murders, based on their statements in the trial, is that their father sexually abused them from a very young age, and whilst this was happening, their mother idly just stood by and did nothing. A documentary that came out in 2024 shows how the trial was mishandled, as the jury could not come to a unanimous decision, which led to a retrial. Now, within that trial, the judge ruled that the allegations of abuse could not be used as a defense, significantly impacting the outcome, and this just disregarded the crucial context that could have influenced the verdict.
Exactly. Or we can even bring up this other case of murder and the media, how Gabby Petito tragically disappeared while travelling with her fiancé, Brian. To summarise part of the story, in the summer of 2021, the couple documented their journey of travelling on a cross-country road trip through social media, but behind the scenes there were signs of tension. In August, police in Utah encountered them after a 911 caller reported a domestic dispute, but no fouls were charged. In early September, Brian returned to his home alone, and Gabby's whereabouts became unknown. Her family then reported her missing on September 11th after Brian or his family refused to cooperate with authorities. Sadly, her remains were found later on September 19th. The coroner ruled her death a homicide by strangulation.
After remaining silent, Brian went missing, and a month later his remains were found along with a note admitting his responsibility for Gabby's death. Gabby's story went viral because it had all the elements that capture public fascination: a young couple documenting their seemingly perfect life on social media, a sudden and mysterious disappearance, and a tragic ending that unraveled in real time. I suppose the contrast between the curated version of her life online and the dark reality behind the scenes struck a nerve, especially with a generation that consumes so much of its content through social media. It does make you wonder where our obsession with true crime cases like this one comes from.
I suppose it does come from a mix of curiosity, fear, and maybe desire for justice. These stories tap into our deepest anxieties. What if this happens to me or someone I love? Whilst also giving us the sense of control as we try to kind of analyze and solve the case.
Yeah, I also think true crime provides us with a space to discuss important societal issues like domestic violence and law enforcement failures in a way that feels personal and urgent. Ultimately, we are drawn to these stories as we're reminded of the fragility of life, the hidden dangers in everyday relationships, and the power of awareness in preventing similar tragedies.
Sure, we might get bored of our lives and want to hear or watch something interesting. But I've got to say, even apart from being bored, in general it seems to look like the stories are interesting to people either way. Maybe they want to be more aware? Hearing about how a woman disappeared late at night and ended up in a river the next day may make women more careful and not to walk alone at night. These situations are real and can happen to anyone.
I want to add that the curiosity in human behavior has got to be one of the biggest factors. Some humans have a darker aspect to their minds, and committing these horrific acts brings a sense of mystery. Why would he murder his family, or his girlfriend, or his friend? Piecing together these clues, analyzing evidence, attempting to understand the motives behind the act, It does make true crime feel kind of like a puzzle, keeping people engaged or entertained. And I really think we should talk about how media plays such a significant role in fueling the fascination. The documentaries that are made, the podcasts that are created, the books that are written, they all kind of present the stories in gripping or cinematic ways.
Let's see the O.J. Simpson trial, for example. This case became the most sensationalized trial in American history. There were televised court proceedings, 24-hour news coverage, and constant speculation that made the case feel like a reality show rather than it being a legal matter. Networks were capitalizing on the public's obsession. People were profiting off selling t-shirts and posters of O.J. It even brought a racial divide in media coverage, with many black communities who saw O.J.'s trial as an example of racial injustice in the legal system. However, the other side of it was the celebrity privilege that he got. Even the phrase, "if it doesn't fit, you must acquit," became a cultural phenomenon when O.J. Simpson struggled to put on the bloody gloves that were used in the murder. And it was replayed repeatedly on television, making it one of the most trial-defining moments. It had everyone involved, and everyone was curious to see what would happen. The curiosity of humans took over in that aspect.
I think along with curiosity, adrenaline plays a huge role. It allows people to experience the rush of danger without real-life consequences, kind of like watching a scary movie, but it's not even fake, which can make true crime scarier. In these intense situations, murders, kidnapping, psychological manipulation, there are triggers of the body's fight or flight response, like when someone is watching a horror movie or riding a roller coaster. Adrenaline also enhances memory and can explain why people vividly remember crime details and develop a deeper interest into psychology. This interplay of adrenaline and dopamine keeps audiences hooked, and like a toxic relationship, their emotional highs and lows with shock, fear, relief, making it super engaging.
I think the rise of social media within true crime has had some negative consequences, turning real-life tragedies into viral entertainment, often prioritizing sensationalism over truth. One of the most dangerous aspects of online true crime communities is how quickly misinformation spreads. People often speculate without any real evidence, leading innocent people to falsely be accused. For example, the Idaho murder case led to many people on the internet falsely accusing people as suspects, leading to harassment and legal issues. These accusations can ruin lives and even interfere with official investigations.
Also, true crime influencers and podcasters often capitalize off of these real-life tragedies. Some families of victims have actually spoken out about feeling exploited as their loved ones' stories are turned into trends or viral topics just to talk about.
True crime has become so normalized despite its horrific nature for several reasons. With social media constantly pushing true crime content, people hear about violent crimes so often that they become numb to the shock factor. This is down to constant exposure, resulting in desensitization, which was once disturbing is now just an episode in a series.
Yeah, I'd also say true crime has a massive entertainment factor. True crime is often presented in a way that mimics TV dramas, usually with cliffhangers, music, and detailed storytelling. Hearing about an awful crime through a podcast or TikTok video doesn't have the same emotional impact as witnessing it firsthand. This distance also makes it easier for audiences to consume disturbing content without fully processing the horror of it.
Yeah, and these cases are not just stories, they're real-life tragedies that affect real people, and it's important to remember the human side behind every case.
If you're interested in supporting victims rather than just following the cases, there are a lot of charities that you can consider donating to, like the Gabby Petito Foundation, which helps survivors of domestic violence and is a safe haven to victims and their children seeking refuge from physical and emotional abuse.
While many of these cases highlight tragedy, it's important to remember that justice is possible. The way that crimes are investigated have come a long way. Advances in forensic science, DNA databases, and digital evidence continue to bring answers to families who have been waiting for justice. Cases once thought unsolvable are now getting closure.
By learning these cases, we are not just telling stories, we are understanding patterns, risks, and ways to stay safe. Knowledge is power, and awareness can make a real difference in preventing future crimes.
You've been listening to Killer Instincts with me, Tara.
Me, Gladys.
Me, Malak.
And me, Alice. Next episode, we will be covering a case with a rare but satisfying ending, a missing person who was found safe years later.
Be sure to stay tuned for that one.
In the meantime, stay safe out there and we will see you next time.
Bye!